When you picture a hot desert, what comes to mind? Probably a huge empty wasteland, right? Well, that image, it couldn't be more wrong. Deserts are actually ecosystems just bursting with some of the most clever and tough life on the entire planet. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into the incredible ecology of hot deserts. Okay, let's just jump right in with a question to get you thinking. What do a camel, a cactus, and the air itself actually have in common? I know, it sounds a little bit like a riddle, but trust me, the answer connects literally everything we're about to talk about. So, the answer? They're all shaped by the extreme conditions of the desert, and they're all part of the solution to surviving there. So, here's our game plan for how we're going to unpack that. We'll start with the Great Desert Belts. Then we'll dissect the anatomy of this extreme environment. And after that, we'll crack open the survival guides for both plants and animals to see exactly how life, finds a way. All right. First up, the Great Desert Belts. I mean, it all really boils down to a pretty simple question. Why are deserts, well, there? Why do they form in those specific places and not others? Okay, so what you're seeing here is basically a giant planet-sized engine at work. It all starts at the equator, right? Hot, super moist air rises up, cools down, and then just dumps all that rain. And poof, you get the world's rainforests. But now, that air is totally dry, so it gets pushed north and south, way up high in the atmosphere. Then when it gets to around 20 or 30 degrees latitude, that cool, dry air starts to sink. And as it falls, it warms up, and what does warm, dry air give you? Yep, clear skies and absolutely no rain. It's this one simple cycle that creates those two massive desert belts wrapped around our planet. So, now we know where deserts are, and we know why they're there. So let's zoom in a bit and look at what makes a desert, well, a desert. This is the anatomy of an extreme. Really, it all comes down to one thing: water. Or, more accurately, the serious lack of it. The main scientific definition of a hot desert is pretty straightforward. It's any area that gets less than 250 millimeters of precipitation a year. And that one simple fact, it dictates every single rule of survival out there. And just to put that number into perspective for you, take a look at this. The average hot desert gets less than a third of the rain you'd see in, say, the United Kingdom. And that's just the average. In the absolute driest places on Earth, like the Atacama Desert in Chile, decades can go by without a single drop of rain. It's wild. But hey, it's not just about being dry. It's the insane temperature swings. Think about it. With no clouds to act like a blanket, daytime temps can skyrocket past 50 degrees Celsius. But then at night, all that heat just escapes right back into space. And temperatures can plummet, drop by as much as 35 degrees. It's this brutal daily cycle of baking hot and freezing cold. And we're not talking about small patches of land here. These places are huge. The largest hot desert, the Sahara, it's roughly the size of the entire United States. Seriously, it stretches across 11 different countries. It's just a colossal landscape where these extreme rules are the law of the land. So with all those challenges, you have to wonder, how does anything possibly survive out there? Well, let's start with our first survival guide, plants. The specialists you find here are called xerophytes, and they are absolute masters at engineering solutions for living with almost no water. And for our first case study, we have to start with the icon of the desert, right? The cactus. The best way to think about a cactus isn't just as a plant, but as a living, breathing water tank. The cactus is just a masterclass in being efficient. Its fleshy, succulent stems, they're built for one thing and one thing only: storing huge amounts of water. And its leaves, well, they've evolved into sharp spines. This is a brilliant two-for-one deal. It drastically cuts down on water loss, and it protects the plant from thirsty animals. Then, the whole thing is wrapped in this thick, waxy coating that basically acts like plastic wrap, keeping all that precious water from evaporating. But not every desert plant uses the cactus playbook. Let's check out another champion with a totally different strategy: the acacia tree. This one is a deep-rooted defender. So instead of storing water, the acacia is a pro at finding it. It sends these incredibly deep roots way down into the earth to tap into underground water sources. It's also got small leaves to minimize water loss, and of course, thorns for protection. But here's the coolest part. It has this amazing partnership with ants. The tree gives them a home inside its hollow thorns, and in return, the ants act like a tiny, ferocious army, attacking any animal that even thinks about taking a bite. Okay, so how do these same ideas play out in the animal kingdom? Let's open our second survival guide and see how animals have come up with their own incredible solutions to the desert's tough demands. And of course, we have to start with the most famous desert animal there is, the camel. This animal is the ultimate conservationist. It's just perfectly engineered for efficiency and endurance.
Literally every part of a camel is a solution to a problem. Its big, wide feet, they're like built-in snowshoes for the sand so it doesn't sink. The thick fur on its back shields it from the blazing sun, while the fur on its sides is thinner to let heat escape. And on the inside, it's a total marvel of water conservation. It produces really concentrated urine and almost never sweats, which lets it go for ages without needing a drink.
But check this out, 42 degrees Celsius, that's a body temperature a camel can handle no problem. For pretty much any other mammal, including us humans, that would be a deadly fever. But for the camel, it's a super clever trick. By letting its body temperature rise, it doesn't need to sweat as much to cool down, which saves even more of that precious water. Okay, so we've seen the big and iconic. Now let's go small and, frankly, a little bizarre. Meet the thorny devil. This little lizard from the Australian outback is, well, it's basically a walking sponge. This has to be one of the most ingenious tricks in all of nature. The thorny devil doesn't need to go find a puddle to get a drink. Nope. Any moisture it touches, we're talking morning dew, even just damp sand, gets collected on its skin. Then, tiny little channels between its scales act like microscopic straws. Through something called capillary action, they pull that water upwards, against gravity, all the way along its body and right into the corners of its mouth. It literally drinks through its skin. It's incredible. So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway? We really have to change how we see the desert. It's not this empty place. It's a landscape of absolutely breathtaking resilience, where every single living thing is a true master of survival. And that brings us to this core idea. In the harshest places, life doesn't just hang on. It gets creative. It innovates. So let's wrap this up. What are the key things to remember? First, we saw that desert locations aren't random, they're created by huge global air circulation patterns. Second, life there is a constant battle against two things, a serious lack of water and those wild temperature swings. And most importantly, we've seen how both plants and animals have developed these incredibly specialized tools to not just survive, but to thrive, making deserts these amazing showcases of evolutionary genius. And that leads us to one final thought, a question I want to leave you with. As we face our own challenges, things like resource scarcity and a changing climate, what can these incredible master survivors of the desert teach us about being more ingenious, more efficient, and ultimately more resilient in our own world?